The wind atop the wall cut like broken glass, pouring itself through the chinks in Maester Aemon's furs and pricking the ancient skin beneath. Even after nearly a century of northern winters, the cold forever found new angles on pain. Tonight, it brought with it the smell of fresh snow and something rarer still, hope. Far below, the torches on the southern side flickered, a wavering golden braid winding along the switchback stair. Each flame marked a sentry sworn to stop any soul from slipping away into the Seven Kingdoms. Yet fires died, men nodded off, and in those half-dreaming breaths the world could shift. Aemon Targaryen pressed gloved fingers to the ice-slick Merlin, steadying himself as the wind's howl rose to a mournful clarion. He listened, not with ears dulled by his 98 years, but with the instinct that had once kept him alive in the shadowed tunnels of the Red Keep. The subtle tremor of iron buckles, the hush of wool on wood, the small cough a man stifled but could never entirely smother. Tonight those sounds did not come. The bastion slept, and in its slumber, the ghosts of House Targaryen rustled their wings. He drew the raven-bone brooch from his collar and turned it in his palm. It had been a king's gift once. His great-uncle Mikar pressing it into his boyish hand on the night Aemon accepted the chain, consigning himself to service and relinquishing every claim to power. Wisdom before crowns, Mikar had said. Fierce love banked behind stern words. Even then it had felt less blessing than brand, a promise of exile within his own blood. Now, as the brooch caught a sliver of torchlight from below, the white bone flashed red, the color of fire reflected, or of birthright unearthed. The wall groaned, its vast, slow breath rumbling through frozen stone. Aemon's gnarled fingers closed around the brooch. He turned from the edge and felt the watchers he could not see. The old gods in their weirwood grove to the north, the new gods in shrines far to the south, the souls of brothers dead in defense of realms that by right were his. He felt them all weighing this moment, and he dared to answer. Hours earlier, Maester Aemon had sat hunched over a brazier in the library tower, parchment spread before him, pen twitching like a nervous bird. The night's duty roster lay to one side. A raven's message from King's Landing lay to the other. That sealed black ribbon still glistened with wax, its imprint unmistakable. Three-headed dragon. Half a century had passed since he last opened a letter marked with the crest of his birth. Now it had arrived unbidden, carried north by a courier whose eyes betrayed more fear than fealty. Aemon had felt the weight of those folded words before reading a syllable. The letter bore Queen Riella's trembling hand. His grandniece, mother to Prince Rhaegar, grandmother now to children whose names Aemon knew only by rumor, wrote of dreams and demise, of King Aerys's darker moods, of wildfire whispers beneath the throne, of a prophecy half-heard through chamber doors. "The realm bleeds," she wrote. "Your brother's line rots in madness and fear. You would have counseled mercy. You would have calmed the storm. But you are beyond our reach, lost to ice and oath." At the end, in letters so fine they seemed etched by grief itself, she pleaded, "Come home, if not for the realm, for the children. Dragons need their elder." He had read it once, twice, and then fed it to the brazier, watching flame tongue across his family's sigil until the parchment curled in on itself, collapsing like a crippled wing. The smoke turned his eyes to water and left a copper taste on his tongue. Some things burned without ever truly becoming ash. Yet the words seeded a reckoning. For years, Aemon had schooled himself to silence. Monastic devotion to the chain, the raven, the patient logic of swivel-eyed scholars. But logic failed before blood, and prophecy, that fickle servant, whispered again in his dreams. A dragon with no rider, black wings beating against a prison of ice. Each morning he woke shivering, though the brazier still glowed. Each morn he told himself none of it mattered. Yet every night the dream returned, louder. That afternoon, as he traced the day's patrol routes, a hush spread through the yard below. Then a roar, the ragged cheer of men released from dread. Garrod the ranger stumbled through the gate, face gray with frostbite and ribboned by claws. His companions kneeling beside him cried news so wild it seemed myth. The White Walkers were stirring, a dead village's lights dancing blue where no hearth burned. Commanders argued, ravens flew, and within chaos Aemon felt a pulse like a dragon stirring beneath skin. Ice awakening in the north, fire flickering in the south. Two storms drawn toward the frail fence of Westeros. If ever prophecy demanded answering, it was now. The plan had taken shape in hours. Brothers weary of vows would aid him, not for gold or promise of pardon, but for love. Samwell Tarly, his trembling quill, risked forging a patrol slip that placed 4 men on the east parapets, leaving the southern stairs thinly held. Dolorous Ed muttered that the gods would damn them all, then polished Aemon's boots. Even Jon Snow, so newly sworn he still wore the look of Winterfell about him, provided the final necessity. A gloved hand steadying the old Maester as he descended the ice stair, step by perilous step, until the shadow of the wall loomed overhead and Aemon Targaryen stood again on soil unbound by oath. It was a moonless night, clouds blotting the stars, the forest alive with the muffled hush of falling snow. Each crunch beneath Aemon's boots rang like a bell calling him to trial. Yet the air tasted sweet. 50 paces from the base, a shack crouched against the wall's stone buttress, an abandoned Fletcher's shed buried half in drift, its sagging roof forming a makeshift cradle for the ropes Jon had procured. Beyond lay the hidden way, a narrow cut in the treeline leading east to the King's Road. Aemon's breath caught as he felt the path like a pulse guiding him home. Sam pressed a bundle into his arms. "Bread, salt pork, dried apples," he whispered. "Enough to reach Queen's Crown if the storm holds." His eyes glimmered behind frost-spotted lashes. "I'll send a rider south with word to the king, whoever that may be, that you come in peace." Aemon smiled, fragile but true. "You send no word, Samwell. No one must know before I choose my ground. Once I kneel to the crowns of men, they will chain me in velvet and call it mercy." He touched Sam's cheek. "Guard your innocence. It will be needed when darkness comes." The boy swallowed, then nodded. Ed helped drape a plain wool cloak over the Maester's heavier furs, hiding the chain of office whose metal links bit cold into Aemon's neck. "Never thought I'd see the day you ditch us," Ed muttered. "Guess I'll have to find some other ancient fellow to pour soup over." "You will," Aemon said, chuckling. It made him cough, each bark scraping raw. When the fit eased, he met Ed's dour gaze. "Look to the ravens. In them I'll leave messages I cannot voice." "Words," Ed sighed. "Never liked them much. Too many meanings." But he squeezed Aemon's arm with an affection as blunt as his humor. Jon Snow lingered last. The wind tossed sable curls across his brow, boyish worry etched in the furrow between his eyes. "Are you certain, Maester?" His voice barely rose above the storm's hush. "The South is different. You may find no welcome." Aemon clasped Jon's shoulder. "Perhaps, but I carry truth older than all their lies." He drew the boy closer, pressing his cracked lips to Jon's ear. "Guard the wall, Snow. Guard it with every breath. For one day soon ice and fire both will try it, and only hearts like yours may hold." He pulled back, half blinded by tears he blamed on the wind. "Keep reading. The answers hide where few look." Jon nodded, though understanding flickered only partly behind his eyes. He would learn. Necessity was the harshest tutor. With that, Aemon stepped into the tree-shadowed corridor, snowdrifts muffling farewell cries. The forest swallowed him. Behind, the torches of Castle Black dwindled to embers, then vanished. The King's Road unspooled southward in a frozen ribbon. For 3 nights and 2 days Aemon walked. Sometimes he leaned upon the gnarled staff Dolorous Ed had thrust at him with a mutter about the blind leading the breathless. Sometimes he rode in the bed of a farmer's cart, straw itching between his fingers, the farmer thinking him a half-deaf grandfather fleeing hard winter. He spoke little, conserving breath. Each mile gnawed at ribs once proud beneath Targaryen armor, now caged to brittle lungs. Yet memory fortified him. He recalled the tourneys of his youth, banners rippling like dragon wings above summer fields, laughter threading the air with promise. He recalled the royal nursery, where newborn brothers mewled against his breast while distant horns hailed some triumph or treason. He recalled the day his father, King Mikar, died in rebellion's flame, witness to how swiftly crowns changed hands and how often they scorched the brow. Most of all, he recalled the moment he chose the chain. Archmaester Walgrave had asked him, in that thin chamber atop the high tower, "Do you desire power, Aemon, or peace?" He had answered peace, thinking it a higher calling. Yet what peace had come? War, famine, mad kings, now winter everlasting. Perhaps power misused breeds misery, but the absence of power breeds neglect. And neglect kills kingdoms just as surely. So he walked, each step rewriting the covenant he had once sworn. First to the citadel, then to the Night's Watch. The chain around his neck had taught a realm to see him as servant. Let them now see the chain as proof that wisdom could sit a throne. On the fourth dawn, rosy light spilled across a rise overlooking Queen's Crown, a mossy ruin clinging to the shore of a half-frozen lake. Smoke rose from its lone chimney, promising warmth. Yet as Aemon descended the slope, he saw more. For riders in mail, cloaks trimmed purple and gold, house roots colors, leading a fifth horse bridled but riderless. The soldiers dismounted before the cottage. One kicked the door. Splinters flew. Aemon's pulse hammered. Bandits, more likely than honest guards. The crown collected no levies this far north in winter, and bandits tallied their sins in suffering. A frail old man could slip past unseen, but prophecy spoke of choices, not avoidance. He gripped his staff and advanced. The first screams cut the air as he neared. A woman's cry, then a child's shrill wail. Aemon felt something harden within his brittle bones. Nearly blind, he traced sound like scent. His staff found the doorframe. He stepped into gloom lit only by a hearth's dying coals. The soldiers loomed, swords wet, ragged breathing loud as wolves. A mother knelt over a boy, perhaps 6, her body shielding him. Blood pooled beneath her skirts. The tallest brute, a sergeant by the swagger, turned. Out crone, lest you wish company in the ground. Aemon heard his own voice rise, thin as steel drawn from rust. Leave the woman, leave the child. Take what food you need and go. The sergeant laughed. Need? We take what we fancy. His sword point rose. Fancy another corpse? No, Aemon's hand dipped beneath his cloak, fingers brushing the raven bone brooch. You dare draw Targaryen blood in my sight? The name struck like an arrow. The sergeant hesitated, eyes flicking to Aemon's face, seeing perhaps only age, but hearing something older. Targaryen? Those dragons are ash. Not all, Aemon whispered. He unclasped the brooch. Firelight kissed its bone like ignited oil. Stand down. For a heartbeat, doubt warred with contempt in the brigand's gaze. Then greed won. He lunged. Time stuttered. The cottage walls seemed to close, hearthlight beating in Aemon's ears. Memory flooded back. A boy of 20 sparring in the Red Keep, graceful as summer wind. That youth was gone, but the lesson remained. Use the enemy's hunger. As the sword swung, Aemon slid aside, pivoting on the staff. Would met steel with a crack, redirecting the blow into the low ceiling beam. Plaster rained down. The sergeant yanked, but the blade wedged. Aemon jabbed the staff into his throat. Cartilage crunched. The man sagged, wheezing. The others advanced, curses falling. One raised a mace. Aemon dropped low, the old knees howling, and swept the staff across the brigand's ankles. Man and mace crashed, the weapon skittering under the table. The third swung a dirk. Aemon caught his wrist, twisting until bones popped and the knife thudded harmlessly between floorboards. Then came the fourth. Axe high, howl fierce. No parry could match that arc. Aemon turned, shoulders braced for impact that would break him. It never fell. A shaft sprouted from the axeman's eye, feathered fletch trembling. He toppled. In the doorway stood the woman, bloodied but upright, holding a hunting bow. Another arrow knocked, drawn to full. Leave, she rasped. The surviving brigands fled, dragging their crippled sergeant. The cottage fell silent but for soft sobs of the boy. Aemon lowered his staff with shaking hands. Days passed before the woman, whose name was Mara, allowed Aemon to bury her husband beside the cottage without insisting on escorting the body back to distant kin. His murder, courtesy of the brigands on their outbound march, had left her with broken ribs, a half-ruined larder, and a son too young to drive a plow. Yet as she watched Aemon carve a dragon's threefold head onto a simple wooden marker above the grave, tears shimmered not solely for loss. "You saved us," she murmured. "No," Aemon wiped sap from his blade, straightening. "Your courage saved you." He met her eyes, hazel bright despite grief. Courage the realm must witness. He told her of King Ares's madness, of prophecy unheeded, of winter's white shadows stealing south. He spoke until his voice cracked, the child nodding sleepily against the hearth while Mara listened. When he finished, silence lay heavy, but not hopeless. "If you mean to take the crown," she said at last, "you'll need more than words and broken soldiers." She fetched a sealed bottle from a cupboard untouched by looters. "Wintertown brandy," she explained, "worth 3 horses to the right merchant." Aemon understood the offer. He shook his head. "Your son will grow in a realm free of beasts in men's skin." She pressed the bottle into his hands. "Go." He hid the brandy in his pack. Next morning she lent him her husband's old gelding, a swayback roan more bone than hide but strong of heart. At the crossroads south of Queen's Crown, Mara embraced him, tears moist on his collar. "A good king tends all gardens," she whispered, "even a widow's patch of frost." He vowed to return once safe paths ran again. Whether vow or prayer, he was unsure. The days that followed bled together. Blinding drifts, frozen brooks, villages shuddered like tombs. Yet rumors traveled faster than snowmelt. One innkeep near the last river spoke of a red priest preaching that dragons would rise anew. A messenger at the Weeping Water reported that the crown prince had fallen at the Trident, slain by rebels rallying behind a half-Baratheon warlord from Storm's End. Each tale twisted the realm tighter. And beneath each echo, Aemon heard the shiver of chance. Chaos enough to reshape the board. By the time he rode into White Harbor's outer district, limp from saddle sores and leaning heavily on his staff, whispers preceded him. Old Dragon, some called, half jest, half awe, the Manderleys, keepers of White Harbor, still honored guest rights. He was granted a narrow room in the new castle's eastern wing and a seat at the high table. For what lord declined a Targaryen of any stripe during civil war? Lord Wyman, massive as a bear and twice as genial, questioned between mouthfuls of trout. "Why leave the watch? Your vows bound you past death." Aemon set aside his spoon. "My vows bind me to defend the realm. A dying king cannot defend. A mad king even less." Conversation stilled. Torches sputtered. Wyman dabbed grease from his beard. "You would claim the Iron Throne? At 98. "My bones are old," Aemon conceded. "Yet my mind is sound, my chain intact, and my blood unbroken." He tapped the table once, a hard knuckle on oak. "I claim it for stability, for life." The Lord weighed him. "The Southron lords will laugh." His eyes narrowed. "Unless you show teeth." Fire and teeth. Aemon lifted the ravenbone brooch between thumb and forefinger. "Give me ships. Passage to Dragonstone." His voice lowered. "There sleeps legacy." Lord Wyman inhaled, jowls quivering. "Eggs? Tales to frighten squires." "Not tales. Dormant truths." Aemon leaned forward, the torch flame carving hollows in his cheeks. "Dragonstone's vaults were sealed by my grandfather's decree. He feared Mad King's alchemy, hid the serpents so none could tempt folly. The secret passed father to son, until no son left could hear." His smile thinned. "But I heard. You proposed to hatch them? With snow blanketing the fields. Dragonfire knows no winter." Aemon closed battered eyelids, seeing flames dance behind darkness. "Give me heat enough, magic enough, and the sky itself breaks open." Lord Wyman chewed thought like gristle. Murmurs flew down the high table. Then he slapped a fleshy palm upon the wood. "3 ships I can spare, swift and quiet. But I'd be derelict if I did not demand an oath. Ask. Protect the north. Should white shadows descend." The words shook, though his tone sought bravado. Our blades alone will not stand. Aemon's heart lurched. He reached across goblets and platters, laying age-spotted fingers atop the lords. By the seven and by the old gods in their frozen wood I shall. His voice barely carried, but its tremor strummed every cup. I will raise walls of flame against the night. Deal struck, Wyman poured wine. And thus was forged the first pact of the Targaryen restoration. Not in a grand council, but in a feasting hall redolent of fried onions and fear. Before the moon turned, Aemon sailed. The three cogs, Sea Swan, Northern Gale, and Faithful, slipped from White Harbor under cover of dawn fog, their holds packed with coal, blacksmith's bellows, and scroll cases bound in oilskin. Aemon rowed aboard Faithful, wrapped in a cloak dyed by Wyman's weavers to bear the faintest sheen of red, blood remembered, not yet proclaimed. Storms harried them. The shivering sea lived up to name. Waves struck like hammers, snapping the mainmast of Northern Gale and casting her captain to watery grave. But the surviving two pressed on, hugging the coast past Gulltown before plunging south and east into Blackwater Bay. Smoke from distant King's Landing muddied the horizon. Ash? Siege works? No time to learn. They veered seaward, rounding Massey's Hook beneath moonlit clouds until the volcanic cone of Dragonstone speared the sky, its jagged silhouette crowned with rookeries like gargoyles in Congress. As dawn bled pink, Aemon stepped onto the island's docks, boots crunching pumice. The castle perched above, scales of black stone fused by dragonfire ages ago, each tower carved to resemble a WRM's neck, maw yawning toward sea. For a breath Aemon felt a boy again, arriving with his brother Aegon to study under Grand Maester Boris. They had chased one another through steaming tunnels, daring phantom dragons to wake. Now Aemon carried no boy's laughter, only intent. The garrison numbered few. Men-at-arms left behind by Aerys when he marched to Duskendale years earlier, their numbers bled further to reinforce the warfront. They recognized the chain, the silver wit, hair spilling from beneath his hood. Many knelt at once, the way memory cuts deeper than oath. By noon, he sat in the stone drum's council chamber, tracing old glyphs etched into the table. Dragons coiled, flames licking continents. He summoned the Castellan, a gaunt knight named Ser Narin Celtigar who bore burns down his left cheek, a reminder of Maegor's traps or some smithy accident. Ser Narin listened as Aemon recited vault locations, ventilation shafts, the rituals of heat and song once used by Valyrian pyromancers to wake stone eggs. It will take more coal than the mine yields in a year, Narin warned, and braziers stacked ceiling high. Then we raz the armory for iron, Aemon answered. Brass for heat sinks, mirrors to focus sun where flame cannot reach. And singers. Aemon's eyes darkened. For that, we need blood of the dragon. He gazed through a slit window southward, to where war clashed. Word must go. The true king calls. Ravens flew. Some never reached their perch, felled by hawks or arrow. Some reached yet never found receptive ears. But a few arrived upon shoulders hungry for change. High in the eyrie, young Lord Robert Arryn's Maester read Aemon's missive to Lady Lisa, who scoffed, then hesitated, remembering her sister's fate beneath wildfire. In Sunspear, Prince Doran listened, slow and silent, weighing vengeance born the night his sister Elia died. Meanwhile, the riverlands burned, the stormlands bellowed Baratheon war songs, and the Reach dallied under Tyrell roses. Yet the greatest reply came not in ink but in wings. On the seventh night of forging, as coal fires roared in Dragonmont's cavern heart and smiths pumped bellows until arms bled, a tremor shook the island. Knights stumbled, molten iron sloshed. Aemon, standing before a trio of dust-gray ovoids nestled among coals, felt a pulse beat through Saul's and into marrow 1, 2, 3, a heartbeat not his own. Cracks spider-webbed across the central egg, glowing ember-bright. The cavern smelled suddenly of rain on cedar, of summer storms. Then the shell split, steam billowing, and from it crawled a thing of shadows and ember eyes, scales gleaming black as obsidian threaded with ruby light. It was small, cat-sized, but flame licked across its tongue as it hissed first breath. Brothers stepped back, some crossing themselves. Aemon knelt, tears streaking soot-caked cheeks. "Balerian's line," he whispered, though the hatchling bore no name but wonder. It clambered into his waiting arms. Its hides were hot, yet painless against his palms. 2 eggs remained still, yet hope brighter than forge fire burned now across Dragonstone. Word swept through corridors faster than wind. The dragons had returned, and with them, the crown owed to their blood. While Aemon's dragon grew, fed on goat, then deer, each meal roasted by its own flickering breath, plans unfurled. Ravens summoned craftsfolk. Glassblowers from Myr, alchemists from Lys, singers whose voices held Valyrian echoes. Some came for coin, some for legend, some for fear that refusal meant dragons at their hearths. Secret docks beneath Driftmark received them, smuggled across night tides under sails dyed black. Yet as seasons turned, politics shifted. Robert Baratheon's victory at the Trident sent King Aerys spiraling deeper into paranoia. Reports reached Aemon of wildfire caches secreted beneath King's Landing, of pyromancers chanting the doom of all who entered. The hand of the king had fled, the Kingsguard fractured, and somewhere within that storm, 2 children, Aemon's great-great-niece and nephew, were said to hide behind Red Keep walls. Aemon's pulse quickened, prophecy's thread tangled. He summoned Ser Narin, eyes sharp despite the sleepless months. "Ready the sea swan, we sail for the capital." The knight frowned. With one dragon no larger than a hound? Men quake before what they believe, not what is. Aemon stroked the hatchling coiled about his shoulders, its talons pricking leather. If they see flame, if they feel heat, they will remember. What of the eggs? They remain. Aemon's gaze fell upon the 2 gray orbs resting in volcanic sand. But life sets its own pace. We do not wait. Riella's children may die tomorrow. Narin bowed. Preparations began. They sailed under storm-shrouded skies. Faithful carried 50 men, 6 cages of ravens, and 1 dragon bound in a gilded kennel whose bars glowed faint red. The hatchling bristled at confinement, smoke curling from nostrils. Yet Aemon soothed it with Valyrian lullabies learned at his mother's knee. Each note warmed the air. Sailors mopped sweat despite winter seas. At Blackwater Bay's mouth they encountered debris. Shattered hulls, bloated corpses, banners half-burned drifting like dying moths. Robert's siege had begun. The faithful skirted wreckage, coaxed by tides toward the narrowing strait beneath the city's looming bluff. Aemon stood at prow, staff braced, dragon perched upon his shoulder now, wings beating uncertainly against salty wind. The walls of King's Landing rose, cracked, blackened, yet still proud. Siege towers ringed their base, tents of rebels dotting the fields like wildflowers of iron and wood. Fires burned day and night, catapults hurled stone, and the city screamed back with wildfire arrows that streaked lime-green tracers against the dusk. It was chaos and fury, perfect cover. At night's deepest hour, Faithful drifted past Flea Bottom's ruined quay, cloaked by smoke and moonless dark. Aemon and 5 chosen slipped ashore, dragging a barge laden with barrels sloshing luminescent emerald liquid. Wildfire stolen from Dragonstone's ancient stores, its recipe older than Aegon's conquest. 2 barrels they rolled to a sewer grate pried open generations ago by smugglers. 3 they hauled to the shadows beneath the Mudgate's west tower. Above, a guard coughed. Another yawned, boots scraping stone. Aemon whispered to the dragon perched on his forearm now, "Dracarys." The word tasted of homecoming. The hatchling's chest swelled. A plume of cobalt flame burst forth, licking seams of the wildfire barrels. Green tongues erupted, devouring air, climbing the tower in roaring cascades. Men shrieked, iron buckled. Within heartbeats, a section of wall crumbled onto itself, stones crashing into the river. Rebel horns blared, mistaking the blast for Aerys' secret doom. The besiegers surged, battering the flaming gap. In that panicked swell, Aemon's band slipped unnoticed through sewer mouth into the city's bowels, dragons glow painting walls emerald and gold. They emerged in the dungeons beneath the Red Keep. Rats fled the hatchling's hiss. The corridors remembered him. Each echo seemed to carry voices of princes and sisters long dead. He traced steps blind yet sure, leading his men through oubliettes until they reached Maegor's Holdfast. There, a lone Kingsguard, Ser Jaime Lannister, golden hair matted with soot, barred the stairs. "Yield," Aemon croaked, voice raw from smoke. "The city is lost." Jaime leveled sword. "I serve the king." "The king serves flame," Aemon answered. "He will burn you with the rest." Screams echoed above, high, terrified, ending in sudden hush. Jaime's blade wavered. "Who are you?" "Blood of the dragon." Aemon stepped into torchlight, silver hair swirling like ghostly banners. "Maester no longer." Prince returned. Recognition flared. "Maester Aemon of the Wall?" "Once." Aemon lifted the dragon. His fiery eyes met Jaime's. "Now rightful heir, until Rhaegar's son comes of age." Thunder rocked the keep. Another wildfire cache ignited by accident or sabotage. Jaime flinched, gaze darting upward. Behind him, footfalls. Soldiers rushing, shouts of surrender, and "protect the queen." Jaime's jaw tightened. Then, with a breath that seemed to hollow his chest, he stepped aside. "They're in the throne room," he said. "He's gone mad." Aemon laid a hand upon the young knight's arm, gratitude unspoken. Together they climbed, dragon flickering sparks across crimson carpets smeared with ash. In the hall of the Iron Throne, smoke-veiled pillars. Aerys Targaryen crouched atop twisted swords, crown askew, hair oily strands. His eyes, once vibrant amethyst, glinted fever-bright. "Traitors!" he shrieked to phantoms. At his feet, the body of Queen Riella lay shrouded, blood pooled dark around crushed blossoms. Aemon's heart froze, but he shoved grief aside. He advanced. "Brother, stop." Aerys peered through haze. Recognition did not dawn. Madness burned too fierce. He lifted a dagger, thin as a tongue, and slashed at empty air. "Burn them all." Aemon gestured. The dragon leapt, wings snapping. It landed upon the throne's back, tail whipping, embers raining. Aerys recoiled, stumbling down iron steps. Before he could scream again, Jaime's sword flashed. The Mad King's lifeblood sprayed across rusted steel. The hall fell silent but for the hiss of cooling iron beneath dragonfire. Dawn bled over burnt spires. Smoke rose in sullen pillars. Rebels breached gates only to find the city half-ruined by its own sovereign. At the Red Keep's highest balcony, Aemon emerged flanked by Jaime and Ser Naren, carrying the hatchling upon his gauntlet fist. Its wings, now broader than a raven's, flared crimson in rising sun. Peasants in the yard gasped. Soldiers froze mid-stride. Aemon's voice, amplified by years of teaching hall lecterns, boomed, "The reign of madness ends. I, Aemon of House Targaryen, first of his name, bear the blood of the dragon untainted. I claim stewardship of the Iron Throne until rightful heirs are restored, and I pledge peace to all who lay down arms." Shock rippled the crowd. Somewhere a sword clanged to cobblestones. Horns grew still. Even the wind seemed to pause. Then, from the rebel camp, a rumble rolled. Through broken gates rode Robert Baratheon, antlered helm in hand, warhammer resting across saddle. Mud and ash streaked his bear-like face. He halted beneath the balcony, staring up at the frail old man and his fledgling dragon. Contempt tugged his lip, yet deeper, awe. Aemon raised one hand in greeting. "Lord Robert, son of Steffan, victor of the Trident, I mourn your brother fallen, as I mourn kin lost to this needless war." His words carried steel. "But the blood you seek has already washed these stones. Lay aside vengeance. Let us heal what remains." Robert's grip tightened on the hammer haft. Around him, Stormlord banners rustled, swords glimmered. Tension coiled like a viper. Aemon's heart hammered. He felt prophecy's breath, fragile, uncertain. And in that space between hatred and hope, the hatchling dragon spread its wings, exhaled a plume of fire skyward. The flame arced pure gold in dawn light, then dissipated into sparks. Gasps rippled again, not of fear but wonder. Robert Baratheon closed his eyes, perhaps seeing the future in that fire. Fields unburnt, children unburied. When he opened them, the fury had drained, replaced by the exhaustion of men who have borne too heavy a crown already. He swung down from the saddle, knees groaning, dropped the hammer. It hit earth with a dull thud. 7 hells, he muttered. I never wanted this blasted throne. He looked up, shoulders sagging. Take it, old dragon. Keep it warm for the babes. But swear, the north remains free of southern folly. Aemon inclined his head. On wings and flame, I so swear. Thus, in smoke and sunrise, the realm glimpsed a different song. An aged maester turned king, a hatchling herald of rebirth. Foes laid low not by slaughter, but by surrender to possibility. Yet beyond courtyard walls, shadows lingered, whispers of others claiming stakes. Tywin Lannister's gold, Stannis Baratheon's law, Lolloress red priests prophesying princes. And in the crypt tunnels beneath the Red Keep, 2 children, Rhaenys and Aegon, hidden by loyal servants, waited for fate to decide if family or flame would claim them. Maester King Aemon, seated upon the iron throne cushioned by crimson velvet lest its barbs tear fragile skin, felt every eye upon him. In the hatchling's reflected fire he saw the cracks of empire, the shifting ice of prophecy, and the promise of dragons yet to rise. His breath came ragged, but purpose steadied his spine. The song was not ended. Its first verse had only just found voice, and as bells tolled across a city reborn in ruin, Aemon Targaryen closed his eyes and began to sing the world anew. Ravens wheeled over the smoldering scabs of King's Landing, their croaks echoing through streets where ash still drifted like gray snow. Maester King Aemon watched them from the Tower of the Hand, hands clasped behind his back, thin shoulders framed by a plain crimson mantle. The fledgling dragon, now large as a mastiff, clung to the crenellation beside him, claws rasping stone, nostrils flaring at every swirling ember. Dawn's red fingers stroked broken rooftops, revealing slow columns of small folk filing toward wagon yards where porridge and barley bread waited under Stormlander banners. Feeding a million hungry mouths was the first test of any monarch, and Aemon would not fail it. Behind him, parchment rustled. Ser Narin Celtigar, temporary hand until a council could be chosen, cleared his throat. Messengers returned from Storm's End. Lord Stannis demands proof of your pledge to seat the children as heirs, signed decrees, witnesses from each great house, custody until they come of age. Aemon inclined his head. Stannis measures words in stone weights. He will have his proof soon. He leaned on his carved ash staff, tracing gaze along the skyline toward the distant Dragon Pit dome. Cracked like an egg in places, but still steady. We name Rhaenys Princess of Dragonstone and Aegon Prince of Summerhall. Titles symbolic enough that Stormlanders may stomach them, yet real enough to gird their claim. Narin's quill scratched notes. Tywin Lannister? Invited to council. Aemon's breath sighed white in the chill. He will arrive draped in gold and grievance. Let him. Widows and orphans care little who minted the coins that buy their bread. Below, a horn moaned, a funerary call. Bodies of city watchmen and rebel soldiers alike were being carried to pyres outside the walls. Every dawn for 10 days now the same ritual repeated. Ashes for ashes, tears for all. Aemon closed his eyes, remembering the scent of his queenly cousin Riella's hair when she'd been but a child in his lap. Now her body lay among charred ruins of the September of Baelor, lost to wildfire's indiscriminate kiss. Grief sought to drag him inward, but duty's stern hand pushed him upright again. Jon Snow's face flashed behind his lids, solemn, earnest, far away atop the wall. When winter's true teeth bared, these southern squabbles would seem like boys skirmishing over chestnuts. He must knit the realm faster than ice advanced. 3 days later, the Dragon Throne Council convened in the small hall, its cavernous scale reduced by draped tapestries to something vaguely intimate. At one end sprawled Robert Baratheon, wine in one fist, empty other hand drumming the table. flanked by Lord John Arryn, gaunt and watchful, and young Renly scribbling notes. At the opposite end sat Aemon, posture regal but relaxed, the dragon, dubbed Quicksilver for the mercury shimmer along its dark scales, coiled at his feet. Between them lounged Tywin Lannister, rings blazing. Eddard Stark, summoned south despite grief for dead brother and father, kept silent near the Targaryen side, gray eyes cataloging every breath. The Tyrells had sent Mace, all muffled courtesy hiding ambition. Dorne sent Maester envoy Olivar Jordain, claiming Prince Doran's gout forbade travel. No Martell swords yet pointed toward retribution, but the air prickled as though sunrise threatened sandstorm. Aemon began without flourish. Our kingdom is broken. We heal it, or perish beneath snows and shades. He nodded to Eddard, who unfolded a weather-stained map. The wall reports increased dead men walking, free folk fleeing south. Lord Commander Corgyle begs aid. Robert squinted. A tall tale to nab my purse. Wildlings always cry monster. Ned rasped. I trust the Lord Commander's seal more than gossip of wine merchants, your grace. His courtesy to Robert contrasted with the cool salute he offered Aemon. No warmth toward either claimant, yet respect for duty. Aemon laid a skeletal finger upon the map's top edge. At Queen's Crown I saw signs. A village frozen mid-meal, wights shuffling through snowdrifts. The threat is real. He lifted his gaze. If we bicker while the Night King marches, there will be no Iron Throne left to covet. Mace Tyrell tugged mustache ends. Then send the Night's Watch more men. 500 from the Reach could. Robert barked a laugh. You'll send grain wagons, not knights. I know Reachmen. He pointed ale-foamed cup at Aemon. Speak plainly, old dragon. What do you propose? A united host, Aemon said. 10,000 from each great realm, marched not to war but to wall. Volunteers, led by lords whose loyalty lies with life itself. Tywin shrugged one armored shoulder. A bold vision, but armies cost gold. Armies far from home become swords for hire, savage or mutinous. And there is the matter of legitimacy. Gold-flecked eyes fixed on Quicksilver. Your hatchling dazzles, yet no full-grown dragon darkens the sky. Without dragons, House Targaryen is simply another house. He sipped wine, savoring ripples of unease rolling through the chamber. Aemon clasped his hands. I do not rely on spectacle, Lord Tywin. Kingship resides in law and need both. The Great Council of 233 AC passed over me to seat my brother Aegon precisely because I wore the chain. Now destiny finds me again, but I claim only regency until the royal children mature. He let silence settle. Renew the pact of ice and fire. North and Dragonblood joined in common cause. Let young Aegon foster in Winterfell under Lord Stark, Rhaenys in Sunspear under House Martell, so no region calls them stranger. A murmur rose. Dorne's envoy bowed. Prince Doran will weigh such honor deeply. Eddard's jaw tightened, but he said, Winterfell will keep any child safe. Robert slammed fist. And the Baratheons? Am I to sit idle while some Babe Rules storms end by edict of a Maester King? No, Aemon replied, voice soft yet firm. You will stand as Lord Protector of the realm, guardian against threats internal and northern. Your strength crowned the rebellion. Now crown it with mercy. He met Robert's rebellious stare. The people already style you Hammer of Justice. Rule their hearts while I mend their fields. Robert's beard twitched, bristling around pursed lips. John Arryn whispered. Finally Robert exhaled thunder. 7 hells. I never fancied quills. If the small folk cheer my ale-sodden tales while you count harvests, let it be. He jabbed finger. But slight me, and even your lizard won't save your bones. Aemon inclined head. Agreed. The council recessed amid uncertain relief. Outside, Raven soared. Quicksilver, startled by their flutter, spread wings and launched upward, its first sustained flight. Gasping servants stumbled from its path as it banked above the courtyard, spilling sparks across banners. Wonder rippled louder than any decree. In that moment, even Tywin's calculating eyes reflected awe. Weeks folded into months. Winter receded shyly, sparing southern plantings and early frost. Under Mace Tyrell's oversight, grain moved north on refurbished Kings Road sections, each wagon escorted by Stormlander spears and Dornish bowmen, a living tapestry of once hostile crests. At Moat Cailin, Eddard Stark welcomed the first columns, marshalling them to the wall along with smiths and masons to strengthen Keep's ice-sheathed. Aemon remained in King's Landing, where his true enemy was time. Age gnawed. Each sunrise stiffened joints further, yet Quicksilver's growth quickened, as though stealing vigor from his sinews. Within half a year it reached horse size, wings casting shadows across the Red Keep's yards. Small folk camped outside the city to glimpse dawn flights, singing ballads of silver blaze bringing hope. In their eyes Aemon read devotion, and fear easily twisted if hope soured. At Dragonstone the 2 dormant eggs still slumbered. Maesters heeded them. Singers chanted in High Valyrian, yet no cracks. Aemon journeyed often by galley to supervise, but each voyage drained him. Sea spray tasted of mortality. On a chill evening of the 7th month, returning to the island laboratory, he stood before the silent eggs arrayed on black velvet. He pressed palm to one, heat faint as embers in snowfall. He closed his eyes, whispering, "Wake, children, your realm needs you." His forehead bowed until it touched shell. No answer but echo of his own failing pulse. In the Riverlands, war reignited. Ser Brynden Tully, Blackfish, reported Lannister outriders harrying supply trains, crying vengeance for debts owed. Tywin claimed rogue bannermen acted without sanction. Proof was elusive, yet graves filled. Aemon dispatched envoys but suspected Tywin stoked sparks, testing Regency's mettle. Then a darker messenger arrived. A raven from Castle Black bearing Jon Snow's hand. Scroll edges crusted ice, script hurried. White walkers sighted at Icemark. Dead advance nightly. Victims rise to swell ranks. Lord Commander Corgyle slain. Brothers holding but outnumbered. Need fire, dragonglass, King's word. Beneath Corgyle's trembled Jon's scrawl. Unleash the dragon, Maester. The wall will fall without flame. Aemon's breath shuddered. He gathered counsel that night. Robert attended half sober. Tywin sneered behind steepled fingers. Mace Tyrell paled. Eddard Stark, returned south to petition for arms, delivered witness. I saw whites beyond the gift, their eyes blue as frozen moons. They feel no pain. Blades only slow them. Fire ends them. Tywin raised brow. So build more torches.
Ned glared.
Torches gutter in blizzards, and others command storms. Aemon rose, slowly, each bone creaking, but voice rang. There is one fire they cannot quench. He turned to Quicksilver perched upon dais. Rump settled like lion before kill. The dragon will go north. Mace gasped. Lose your symbol and lose the throne. Save the realm and earn it, Aemon countered. Robert's grin flashed. I'll ride with the beast. Smash some snow wraiths, Tywin scoffed. And leave the capital undefended from Greyjoy raids? Madness. Silence knitted. Who would lead? Eddard broke it. Send me. Shock, then murmurs.
Net met Aemon's case.
My father fell because a mad king ignored counsel. I will not. Let me guide Quicksilver, men of the north at my back. Aemon's heart leapt yet hesitated. The dragon bonds to blood of Valyria. It has not accepted another rider.
Ned approached Quicksilver slowly.
The dragon sniffed broadsword frost scent, exhaled smoke. Stark eyes, gray and unflinching, met molten orange. The beast hissed softly, less threat, more query. Ned extended gloved hand. Talon's snout nudged. Quicksilver's neck arched, wings half open. Gasps rippled. Perhaps, Aemon whispered. Legacy acknowledges honor. Decision forged. Preparations commenced. Aemon ordered the royal armorer to craft dragonglass-tipped spears from obsidian cliffs of Dragonstone, an ancient stash unearthed by miners after Quicksilver's fire softened basalt seams. Maester's brewed wildfire grenades for last resort. From Old Town Road, Archmaester Bonero of the Red Faith, claiming fire god's favor guided them. Aemon welcomed any flame that burned ice demons. On the eve of departure, Eddard visited the old king's solar. Candles cast wavering halos, making shadows dance like wights around them. Aemon sat before an oaken chest, lid cracked. "I entrust you with these," he said, lifting two slender blades. Dark silver Valyrian steel daggers, hilts shaped as entwined dragons. They were forged for Aegon the Conqueror's daughters, Rhaenys and Visenya. "Your girls may never wield them, but their father shall." Ned accepted, awe deep in lines of face. "I will return them." "Return yourself," Aemon replied. "The realm will need your temper when these old embers die." They embraced awkwardly, king of failing bone, lord of northern iron. The dragon host numbered 2,000, a mix of Night's Watch recruits, Northmen, Stormlander volunteers seeking glory, and even 50 Dornish spearmen led by Ser Aaron Dane. Starfall's purple blade dawn left sheathed at hip. They sailed from White Harbor aboard great cogs reforged to hold beast and men. Quicksilver roost on a reinforced deck, tail curling about mast. As sails caught wind, Aemon stood on frosted quay, cloak snapping. He raised staff. Ned raised sword in salute. Over icy gap their eyes spoke. Faith, fear, farewell. Storms plagued the voyage. One snow squall near Skagos froze rigging solid. Sailors hacked with axes to free lines. Quicksilver beat wings to warm deck, its geysers of flame melting ice but scorching rope ends. Yet they pressed on. At Eastwatch by the sea they found chaos. The wooden palisade burned in spite of blizzard gusts, a final act to keep undead from climbing breached wall. Corpses littered dam, some fresh enough to twitch until torches silenced them. Cotter Pike, grim commander of the port, greeted Ned with exhaustion hollowing eyes. They mass in silent hordes beyond Blizzard Guard. If that stronghold breaks, we drown in corpses. Ned studied the breach, a ragged hole where ice had shattered outward, not inward. Something within had detonated. He issued orders. Barricade choke points with ship masts, embed dragonglass blades. Men armed with obsidian stand behind wooden walls to stab any wight that thrusts through. Above, Quicksilver circled, keening as though sensing storm inside storm. Ned climbed up the wall's ice stair astride the dragon, gloves buried in scale fringes for grip. Wind howled, snow-flayed cheeks raw. Near the top, ghosts emerged from swirling white. First a gaunt rider draped in ragged black, then another, their mount's skeletal elk. Their eyes glowed blue.
Ned's gut I sit.
He pressed heels. Quicksilver banked, hovering before the ridge. The others tilted heads. One raised an ice spear, facets catching pale moonlight. Ned shouted, voice lost in gale. The spear flew. Quicksilver tucked wing. Spear glanced off rib plates, leaving line of frost that steamed instantly. A snarl rose from deep chest. Ned felt heat surge beneath him, like standing above a smith's forge bellowing. Dracaries, he roared, word taught by Aemon. Flame blossomed, bright yellow shot with blue heart, pouring in a cone. The wind tried to rip it aside, but fire carved path, engulfing nearest walker. Frost armor exploded in steam. Sapphire eyes burst. Ash drifted on storm. The second walker retreated with unnatural swiftness. Quicksilver chased, but the walker disappeared into blinding white. Victory was brief respite. White cries echoed, thousands charging. Ned guided dragon lower, breathing becoming labored in swirling smoke. Below, men held wooden ramparts. Flaming arrows rained into biting dark. Undead surged, their climbing claws chipped but relentless. Then Quicksilver landed upon the rampart, tail lashing. At Ned's signal, barrels of pitch were rolled from parapet edges. Quicksilver ignited each with a puff. Blazing tar cascaded onto swarming dead. Screams like breaking glass filled night. Ice cracked under heat shock. Whole swathes of whites plunged from cliff. For 3 nights the battle raged. Whites retreating by day, assaulting by dusk. Quicksilver's scales charred, his roar hoarse, Ned's eyes bloodshot, sword arm numb. Day 4 dawned blood-red. Silence lay beyond wall. Scouts ventured and found only frozen limbs, ice spears abandoned. The army of the dead melted away, leaving riddles in snow. They had survived, but frostbitten casualties littered beds, and reserves of dragonglass depleted by half. Ned penned Raven. Victory at Blizzard Guard Stop Wall stand stop send more glass stop King's word needed. The Raven reached King's Landing to find the city aflame, not by enemies but by fever. A pox swept through flea markets first, then manors. Maesters identified winter fever, a strain dormant since shivers of 59 AC. Quarantines erected, yet carts of dead soon clogged alleyways. Aemon, frail already, labored day and night administering poppy tea and barley water, his chain clinking as he knelt beside beggars and lords alike. Quicksilver, returned from north for resupply, perched atop the September's wreck, lighting funeral pyres to halt spread. Yet the plague crept inward. Varys the Spider, still master of whisperers despite shifting thrones, slipped into Solar One dusk. Candlebanks flickered, their melted wax pooling like tears. Aemon massaged temples. "Your Grace," Varys purred. A rumor coils through court that the sickness is curse for crowning a maester. Zealots gather at Cobbler's Square. Aemon sighed. "Fear needs scapegoat. Have the city watch protect healers." "Done," Varys said. "But gold cloaks bleed recruits to plague. Rioters may overwhelm." Aemon's knees protested as he rose. "Then give them hope." He called scribes, dictating edict. Every patient to receive soup at crown expense. Temples granted funds for alms. Any healer, septons, red priests, even hedge witches, welcome to aid. He ordered Quicksilver to fly each dusk above the city breathing gentle heat. Enough to purify air in hovels where chimneys lacked. Some maesters doubted effect, but morale soared as children cheered the nightly blazing wings slicing twilight. Still, Aemon's lungs ached. Fever lurked behind sternum, each cough rattling. Archmaester Ibroz pressed him to rest. "The realm cannot lose you," he urged. "Nor I it," Aemon whispered, but duty's embers dimmed when breath wheezed. On the 20th day, plague curve bent downward. New cases halved, then halved again. In Cobbler's Square, survivors raised wooden effigy of dragon crowned, not in iron but laurel leaves. Riots dissipated to hymns of gratitude. Yet Aemon collapsed near dusk while blessing an orphan queue. Quicksilver landed in the square recklessly, scattering townsfolk, and curled protectively around its master until guards coaxed it away. Bedridden, Aemon wrote letters. To Ned at the wall, hold fast. Second egg stirs. Soon more fire. To Jon Snow, your heart will guide realm. To Samwell, guard library of Castle Black. Knowledge wins wars. To Robert, drink less.
Ser nahum vept quietly, que os crashem as final testament.
Weeks later, bells tolled once, twice soft, uncertain. They rang not for death, but for birth. The second egg on Dragonstone cracked. A white-scaled wormling emerged, eyes like molten gold, breathing pale fire. Ravens raced the wind. The city erupted in cheers, sign that King would recover. Aemon smiled upon hearing from his sickbed. "Name her Hope," he rasped. The maesters informed him his fever had broken. He might yet ride again. He closed eyes, imagining 3 dragons soaring. Quicksilver, Hope, and the third yet to come. An aerial trinity guarding horizon. But peace is brittle glass. In Old Town, High Septon Belisarius declared Aemon's reign heresy. Maester sorcery enthroning abomination. Sparrows armed with cudgels marched north, seizing granaries. Tywin Lannister, citing threats to trade, fortified Gold Road passes, ostensibly to protect caravans, but truly to choke capital if needed. Robert, chafing under Protector's paperwork, joined hunting party west of Kingswood, leaving governance to Jon Arryn. Jon pleaded for unity. Tywin demanded marriage bond, his daughter Cersei to Prince Aegon, to secure Westerland's loyalty. Doran Martell counteroffered betrothal of Aegon to his daughter Arianne, citing ancient grievances. The children still toddled under nursemaids, yet their hands already pulled by kingdom strings. Aemon convened council again, voice weaker but mind sharp. The Iron Throne is no spoils chest. We shall hold a tournament 1 year hence. Dragon's Dawn tourney, where knights prove valor, not coin. The champion may name bride for each heir, provided match furthers peace. Chaos threatened. Tywin's sneer could have cut cloth. Yet talk of tourney lured valiant hearts. Small folk cheered promise of spectacle. Aemon gambled that swords crossing lists might vent ambitions. Snow mounded 5 feet against the wall when Ned received Raven of the tourney. He chuckled despite raw throat, hard to imagine just while undead lingered. Still, he penned supportive reply. The others had not returned since Quicksilver's fire. Scouts reported unnatural hush beyond Frostfangs. But Jon Snow believed silence hid mustering. He trained volunteer hosts daily, teaching them to embed dragonglass shards into wooden shields for quick draws. One moonless night, a ranger stumbled back with story. At the spiral of the Milkwater, he saw pale figures bending over prostrate white corpses, pressing ice hands to foreheads. The corpses rose renewed, fused limbs replaced by crystalline growth. Evolution. Jon's blood chilled. He dispatched Raven to Aemon. Night King heals ranks. Send hope north when fledged. We require more fire. Back in the capital, Aemon's health teetered. He rose each dawn to feed Quicksilver strips of charred boar, but steps slow. Hope, now kennel-bound until wings strengthened, screeched for sky. The third egg lay inert. Aemon knelt before it nightly, chanting lullabies of old Valyria wrought through cracked voice. One stormy eve, lightning split clouds above Dragonstone's caldera. Castle maids swore they heard dragon cries echo thunder. When Aemon arrived next morning, the egg glowed faint crimson along fissures, but would not open. He ordered it submerged in obsidian braziers, lava-mimicking coals, sealed chamber, and posted red priests to tend flames day and night. On the last day of the year, capital streets filled with frost yet sparkled under lanterns for festival marking end of plague. Aemon, bundled in furs, rode in litter to September ruins where new foundation stones laid. He spoke to crowd of resilience. A city reborn in ash proves all flames may forge hope. Quicksilver passed overhead, trailing sparks like fireworks, children squealing. Suddenly horns blared. Riders at Rose Road Gate, banners lion and stag entangled. Tywin Lannister had arrived with 800 armored men, ostensibly guard for tournament scholars. Rumor whispered second motive, secure throne if Maester King died. Ser Naren advised denying entry. Aemon waved him aside. Let lions enter den of dragons. They may find teeth but also warmth. Tywin was granted suite overlooking river. That night in small council he proposed marriage again. Cersei, 14, to Prince Aegon once he turned 7. Jaime to Rhaenys by same token. He proffered dowry of 10,000 gold dragons and guarantee of half Westerland or shipments to fund northern campaign. Robert voiced support, wine loosening his affection for Lioness he'd once hoped to wed. Jon Arryn saw compromise path. Doran Martell remained silent, brow knitting. Aemon listened, then requested solitude. In his solar, he unfolded Dornish Raven, repeating plea to marry Aegon with Arianne, binding houses that war's wound had sundered. He sighed. Choices measured in children's futures weighed heavier than swords. Quicksilver landed on balcony, knocking shutters open. Its molten eyes regarded Maester. Aemon stroked jaw ridges. When did dragons bend knees to politics? He whispered. The beast nuzzled his palm, exhaling warm breath that eased arthritic knuckles. Decision crystallized. Next council, he declared. No betrothals until heirs choose of own free wills at age 4 and 10. Gasped. Tywin's lips thinned. Aemon raised hand. Instead I offer pledge. Each great house shall foster a Targaryen child in rotation once every 3 years, sharing burden and blessing. Thus no region shall fear exclusion, and heirs no kingdom's breadth. It was unprecedented, also ingenious. Children safe from single-house manipulation, realm bonded by shared guardianship. Tywin raged but found no ground to denounce fairness. Doran Martell smiled faintly. Mace Tyrell saw a future bride for his son eventually. Council ended amid wary détente. Late winter delivered dire news. Quicksilver, during patrol along Blackwater Rush, snapped at flock of ravens that attacked mid-air, birds with blue-lit eyes. The whites reached south. Quicksilver burned them, but worry spread. Aemon dispatched red priests to every holdfast, teaching peasants to salt dead and keep torches burning nightly. That same week, Archmaester Ibroz entered Solar with grave face. "My king, your cough worsens. Lungs rattle. Fever may return." Aemon smiled thinly. "If so, I burn brighter once more." He coughed, spittle tinged pink. "Help me walk to Rookery." Atop tower they found ravens restless. Aemon selected one black as midnight. He bound scroll. "To Lord Snow, hope nearly ready. Hold until spring thaw. Then sky brings dawnfire." He tied note, whispered, "Fly true." The raven launched into purple dusk. Aemon watched until speck vanished. He sank onto bench, breath ragged. Quicksilver perched nearby, low whine humming. "Soon," Aemon murmured, "soon both of you will guard realms men barely deserve." He closed eyes, picturing northern lights shimmering on dragon wings, white walkers melting beneath flame, fields of grain waving under rebuilt roads, children laughing without fear of plague or war. He drifted to sleep there, chin against chest. When dawn came, Maesters found him still seated, face peaceful, staff resting between frail fingers. Quicksilver sat unmoving beside him, tail curled around tower, its eyes moist. The realm awoke to tolling bells, not frantic but steady, measured. Life's beat slowing to final cadence. Jon Arryn announced passing of Maester King Aemon, first of his name, Dragon of the Dawn. Throughout city, candles were lit in windows, a sea of pinprick suns. Across Westeros ravens carried word. Men who had cursed dragons lowered heads. Women wept for Healer King. Yet hope did not die. At Dragon's Tone, second WYRM hope spread wings heartbeats after candle ceremony. Third egg, hearing bells perhaps, cracked open at last, revealing crimson gold hatchling. Red priests proclaimed it omen. The king's spirit reborn in flame. Jon Snow's raven arrived hours later, unread until after funeral. White walkers massing again triple in number. War inevitable. Send fire. The Regency Council met beneath flickering torches. Robert, now at sobriety's edge, pounded table. Aemon's last wish was unity. "We honor him. We ride north with dragons." Tywin objected. "Dragons under whose command? The beasts trust no one but Targaryen blood." Rhaenys, scarcely 5, entered with nurse in tow. She approached dais, eyes lavender bright, and stretched tiny hand toward Quicksilver. The great dragon bowed head, rumbling like distant thunder, allowing her palm to press warm scale. Gasps filled hall. Hope fluttered from balcony, landing at Prince Aegon's feet. He giggled, golden curls catching torchlight as hatchling nosed his knee. Seeing this, Jon Arryn whispered prayer. Robert smiled wide as battlefield grin. Tywin exhaled slow, as though coins slipping through fingers into river. Decision sealed. A host would march come spring. Dragons ridden by children guided by trusted knights until grown. Realm united under promise of dawnfire. An encrypt of red keep, Maester Aemon lay wrapped in crimson silk, ravenbone brooch pinning shroud. Above, new kingless throne waited, not for crowns cast of iron, but for age when ice melted and dragons soared free. Outside, first crocus of early spring pushed through soot-coated courtyard soil. A boy pointed, "Look, dragon's breath made flowers." His father smiled. For first time in memory, hope felt as real as steel. Far north, Jon Snow watched horizon from atop rebuilt Icemark rampart. In gloved hand, he held Aemon's final letter. He tucked it close to heart and turned up collar against biting wind. In distant sky, a shape appeared, silver arc glinting, even brighter than Aurora's dance. Jon's grin cut through frost. The war for Dawn had begun, and Maester Aemon's fire still burned in every heart it touched. A hush settled over the throne room as moonlight ghosted through shattered colored glass windows, scattering fragments of ruby and sapphire across the stone like the memory of a summer feast long forgotten. Courtiers moved in muted currents, whispering condolences and calculating angles. The Iron Throne loomed at the chamber's far end, a monster forged of sorrowed steel and sharpened ambitions, its edges glinting each time a brazier's flame leaned close. A velvet-draped dais had been raised before that twisted seat, and upon it rested the simple blackwood bier that held Maester King Aemon Targaryen beneath folds of crimson and white silk. His raven-bone brooch pinned the shroud at his breast. The brooch's pale curve caught torchlight in an uncanny glimmer, as though some small part of him yet watched these proceedings with clear amethyst eyes. Quicksilver stood sentinel at the bier's head, wings tucked, tail coiled about clawed feet the size of wagon wheels. The dragon's scales shimmered between pewter and starlight, each breath rolling from its nostrils in twin wisps that condensed upon the chill air. Silent tears had carved twin tracks through the soot streaking its snout. The Queen Regent, Ser Naren called her so until the council chose formal words, moved forward. Rhaenys Targaryen was no more than 5 years of age, yet the heavy mantle of black and red brocade that draped her narrow shoulders seemed somehow measured precisely for her frame. Her small hand closed around Prince Aegon's fingers. The boy clung to her, knuckles white. Ser Barristan Selmy returned to the capital upon news of Aemon's passing, stepped behind them, silver hair gleaming where Helm once sat, the Kingsguard cloak crisp and unstained despite the city's fresh ash. In a hall ordinarily roiling with politics, all talk dwindled as the children advanced. Even Tywin Lannister, standing ramrod still near the western wall with a band of gold-mantled guards, could not conjure a single sneer. Robert Baratheon, eyes rimmed red but clear for once of wine's fog, shifted his weight, half bowing without quite realizing he had moved. Rhaenys stopped before the bier. She released her brother's hand and placed her palm upon the silken shroud. A hush thickened. What words could a child speak to a man who had bridged nearly a century of triumphs and disasters? She did not try. She bowed her head, lashes lowering to kiss her cheeks. Her lips formed a shape, perhaps a prayer, perhaps a promise. Tears trembled but did not fall. Aegon mimicked her, smaller fingertips resting beside hers. Then he tilted his chin up, looking not at the dead king, but at Quicksilver. The dragon's molten eyes took the boy's gaze, unblinking, and a low thrumming rumbled in its chest, like the echo of a drumbeat carried from a battlefield leagues away. The boy lifted his other hand and touched the dragon's nose. Smoke curled in contentment. For an instant, the entire court seemed to breathe as one. In that breath, something passed between dragon and prince. Something none present could name but all felt, like a lantern flare glimpsed through the fog. Quicksilver's wings flexed once. The torches wavered. Gold and scarlet flames danced in silent homage to the meeting of promise and power. Then the moment passed. Rhaenys drew her hand back, nodded to Barristan. The old knight guided the children from the dais. Attendants moved forward with iron braziers packed with fragrant oils and wildfire crystals, gifts delivered by the Guild of Alchemists who had begged the honor of one day's penance for their complicity in Mad King Aerys' horde. For braziers circled the bier, north, south, east, west, its legs shod with dragon-shaped supports cast in blackened bronze. Tishy of Lys, granddaughter to a famed temple singer, began an old Valyrian dirge, high and keen, a melody older than the Royne's first reeds. No accompaniment followed, only her voice, curling through the rafters like silver smoke. It wrapped the hall's jagged edges, coaxing from stone and steel some deep resonance, an answering cry of ages weighed in sorrow. When her final note quivered into silence, the braziers were lit. Emerald tongues rose with flickering orange hearts, casting eerie halos against the bier's blackwood frame. Quicksilver lifted throat to the roof and loosed a soft gout of pale flame straight upward. The heat washed across balconies, laden with the scent of cedar and myrrh. No banners caught. Long drapes had been soaked in river water beforehand. The flames spiraled into nothingness, a silent signal to the night sky that the dragon of the dawn was flown. Varys took the children's hands anew as stewards guided guests from the hall. Robert lingered, huge shoulders squared in rare solemnity. Jon Arryn approached him, voice low. "Will you hail the regency, my lord?" Robert's mouth twisted. "A council of lords I can stomach. A council of quills and soft songs makes me itch." He rubbed his beard. "But the realm needs something steady." His gaze flicked to Rhaenys gliding away. "Girls got more composure than half those peacocks." He exhaled. I'll pledge protectorate till she's come of age." Tywin's eyes narrowed, reading mathematics of power shifting in the man's chest. He remained silent, cold and watchful as a raptor at dawn. Later, in the Tower of Maegor, torchlight fidgeted along the circular council table's polished surface as lords claimed seats. The chamber smelled of damp stone and fresh ink. Jon Arryn presided, quills at ready for signatories. Varys, a placid whisper in lilac robes, hovered near the periphery. Grand Maester Gorion, successor appointed by unanimous acclamation of the conclave after Aemon's demise, sat calm, thin fingers folded, milk-white chain links gleaming among iron and tin. Robert Baratheon leaned back, wide legs splayed, but his eyes were clear, fixed on the vellum sheets awaiting final words. Tywin Lannister placed a single-ringed hand upon the table. "We have yet to discuss stewardship of royal finances. A kingdom cannot wage war on shadows without coin." Jon Arryn inclined his head. "Lord Tywin, the crown acknowledges Lannister loans carried since King Aerys' reign. As protector of the realm, Lord Robert shall authorize repayments against new revenues." "Revenues?" Tywin's brow arched. "From where?" Randall Tarley, summoned as Marshal of the Reach contingents, answered bluntly. "Tariffs on Myrish cloth imported through Old Town ports were suspended during plague. Reinstate them at thrice rate and funnel duties north." Mace Tyrell, who had only just taken a seat, sputtered. "That will starve my trade houses." Randall's glare cut like a whetstone. "It will feed the wall." Jon Arryn lifted a tempering palm. "Lord Tyrell, your coffers remain the fattest in Westeros. Grain prices plummeted thanks to your bounty. A duty on luxury cloth will scarcely sting." Mace blustered but subsided, muttering about ruined silks. Tywin's lips twitched in faint approval. "Very well. I would furthermore volunteer a single levy. House Lannister will forgive 5% of accrued interest annually, provided each great house matches coin contributions to a Northern War Fund." He looked from Tyrell to Martell Envoy, then to Baratheon. "Equality in sacrifice fosters trust." Robert snorted but nodded agreement. The Reach Lord winced, yet gave a reluctant nod. The Dornish representative, Maester Olivar, responded with measured nod. Prince Doran had foreseen such maneuvers and prepared coffers of trade spices accordingly. Jon Arryn's quill danced, inscribing terms. Next, guardianship rotation. He unrolled a map of Westeros pinned with golden studs at Winterfell, Sunspear, Highgarden, Casterly Rock, and Storm's End. The first cycle shall be Princess Rhaenys to Dorne, Prince Aegon to Winterfell, effective at the spring equinox. He met Tywin's gaze directly. The second cycle shall see them fostered at Casterly Rock and Highgarden respectively. By their 10th name day they will spend a season in Storm's End, and finally return to King's Landing preceding their 12th year. Tywin tapped table. The small council must confirm that each host house may appoint a sworn shield of their choosing to accompany the ward upon transition. Robert grunted assent. Jon Arryn noted it. Grand Maester Gorion sprinkled sand to dry ink. A servant slipped in, bowed, and whispered to Varys. The spider glided to the table. "Forgive the interruption, my lords. A raven has arrived from White Harbor, urgent seal." Jon Arryn accepted scroll, slit wax. His brows knotted. "Lord Manderly reports ironborn raiders striking grain fleets near the Bight. Ships bound for the Wall torched. Survivors speak of a bearded giant clad in kraken-scale mail." Robert slammed fist. "Victarion Greyjoy, mayhap, or Euron, that crow-eyed wretch." He looked to Tywin. You still fancy rose gardens while the Krakens plunder our lifeline? Tywin's voice cooled the air. Ironborn nipping at carcasses rarely dare open war unless they sense weakness. Show them steel and they flee. He fixed Robert with a quiet challenge. Randall rose. I can sail 300 men-at-arms from Old Town within the fortnight, archers enough to harry their longships. Jon Arryn made note. Excellent. The Northern War Fund shall prioritize naval escorts. Meanwhile, Lord Manderley must salvage grain. We cannot afford further delays reaching Castle Black. Speaking of the wall, Robert said, sitting forward, I mean to ride north when the first thaw breaks, with the mounted Stormlander host. The dragon's flame buys us daylight. Steel must strike before night returns. Eyes widened around the table. Tywin's jaw tensed, but he leaned back. The realm will require one voice in King's Landing. Varys's whisper slid between them. Lord Tywin, your reputation for prudence renders you ideal for such stewardship. The spider's smile resembled a mask glimpsed behind curtain. Tywin's lids half fell in measured acceptance. Jon Arryn nodded. Agreed. The small council entrusts Lord Tywin as Warden of the Red Keep and Master of Coin Provisional, in Protector's absence. Robert stood. Good. We've a plan. He cracked knuckles. Now fetch me quills. I'll sign this parchment before I drown myself in ale. Night pooled across the Blackwater rush like spilled ink by the time Rhaenys climbed the rookery's spiral stair. Barristan followed close, white cloak shifting softly. Aegon slept in her chamber below, watched by Septa Lemore. Yet she could not sleep. She needed to see the sky, and the ravens she adored. Atop the rookery, wind tugged her braids. Quicksilver crouched on a neighboring turret, its silhouette etched against swollen winter moon. Waxing now round and bold, the dragon turned its head, rumbling greeting. Rhaenys padded across slate roof tiles, undeterred by gusts. She knelt beside a perch where a single raven preened. The bird cocked its head, clicked beak. It wore a minuscule ribbon of crimson upon one leg, Aemon's mark. She stroked its feathers. Hello, Ghostwing. She named this raven for its snowy flecks. The raven nibbled her finger affectionately. Barristan hovered near Hatch, allowing privacy yet vigilant. Rhaenys gazed at the sky, then at Quicksilver, massive, unshackled. Will he come back, Ser Barristan? The knight knelt, armor groaning. Your grandsire? King Aemon rests now in halls of his ancestors. I know, she whispered, tears drying salt on cheek. But when dragons die, songs say they become stars. Do maesters become stars too? Barristan's weathered face softened. I believe wise men's spirits ride the tails of comets, lighting paths for those who follow. He tapped her small shoulder gently. Look, that bright one near the moon. Perhaps he watches from there. She followed his finger. A brilliant star did gleam, unwavering. Quicksilver crooned, sensing mood. In the dragon's eyes, Rhaenys saw a reflection of the star, twin embers in molten gold. She stood, small fists curling in resolve. I will ride him one day, Ser. She glanced at Barristan. Do you think he'll choose me? You are dragon blood. Barristan smiled. I think Quicksilver already has. The dragon spread wings wide as sails, catching moonlight. Rhaenys laughed, sound delicate as chimes. Down in the city, bells rang evening prayer. High above, a star shone steady, perhaps guiding a new reign not of swords but of dawnfire and courage. The dawnfire host assembled beyond the King's Gate. Camps sprawled along the Rose Road, pavilions of brass and scarlet for Stormlanders. Pine-green rows of Northmen wrapped in white bear pelts. Dornish tents in sun-faded orange. Soldiers from the Reach marshaled neat as wheat stalks. Iron-rimmed carts carried dragonglass blades, wildfire flasks, siege hammers. At the head of all, the dragon Quicksilver perched upon a reinforced wagon bed, harnessed only by gentle ropes of silk more ceremonial than secure. Its golden eyes surveyed men with the languid assurance of a predator holding court. Snow still rimmed ditch edges and rooflines, yet the sky tasted faintly of thaw. Robert Baratheon rode along ranks astride a black destrier, drumming warhammer against saddle rim in cadence with drums. He wore no crown, only antlered helm slung at his hip, its metal polished to midnight gleam. Jon Arryn accompanied him, reading roll of companies, recording pledges. High on the walls, Rhaenys watched, Aegon at her side. Winds pressed her red and black scarf against cheeks, but she barely noticed. Every drumbeat thrummed in her chest. Below, Quicksilver arched neck, wings unfurling a moment to stretch sinews itching for sky. Troops cheered at the sight. The dragon responded with a short burst of flame that whooshed above helmets. But control learned under Aemon's soft instruction tempered its fury. The city folk pressed along parapets and towers. They cheered the Dawnfire host, though fear flickered beneath. They had known wars for crowns and coins. Now they confronted war against myths. The presence of a dragon and a regiment of houses formerly sworn to each other's ruin gave them hope. A frayed, but glimmering thread in the tapestry of uncertainty. Rhaenys gripped Crenel roughness. "One day I'll lead them," she whispered. Aegon, lisping still on certain consonants, said, "I want to see the ice giants, then come home to lemon cakes." She laughed quietly, ruffling his curls. Below, horns sounded departure. Quicksilver bounded forward, claws striking earth like thunderclaps. Each hop covered dozens of yards despite harness. Robert's destrier skittered until its rider calmed it with soft words. Northmen parted for the dragon, cheering. Randall Tarley signaled cavalry column. The Dawnfire host rolled north along the King's Road, banners rippling beneath a pale sun. Quicksilver vaulted, wings catching currents. With a great heave it rose, pulling cart rig free of traces. Silk ropes snapped, drummers roared approval. In 3 wing beats the dragon soared above. Shadow swept across host like a traveling eclipse. Gates closed behind yet hearts followed skyward. Rhaenys watched until the dust cloud dwindled. She turned to Barristan at her back. "Sire, I wish to learn the blade." "The blade, princess?" He studied her, weighed by oath and pragmatic fear. "It is perilous. So is the wall." She lifted chin. "But Uncle Jon fights there, and he learned." Barristan inhaled, the years visible in his eyes. "Very well, but swords demand patience. We begin with stance and footwork." He bowed. "After breakfast each dawn." Rhaenys' smile outshone the cold morning sun. Half a fortnight later, at Maidenpool, the Dawnfire host paused to restock water casks. Fishermen brought salted cod. Markets traded barley cakes for Tyrell silver. Robert inspected each wagon personally. Jon Arryn mapped next marches, to Duskendale, then by coast road to the Trident's fords where pontoon bridges awaited. Quicksilver nested upon chalk cliffs overlooking bay. Stormlander scouts avoided approach. Only Ned Stark could stand near the beast comfortably, for Quicksilver sensed his scent from earlier hunts. Ned had flown south to rejoin host after months fortifying the wall. He now conferred with Robert beside a canvas table pinned with stones heavy enough to resist the dragon's downdraft should it choose to land. The Night King withdrew to regroup. Ned indicated map beyond Frostfangs. Jon Snow's ravens report swirling snows unnatural, pale vortices forming like crowns above moving armies. He believes the walkers conjure storm walls to hide their strength. Robert frowned. How many walkers? Unknown. A dozen seen commanding thousands of wights. But each walker slain seemed to birth new fissures of ice that knit lesser dead together, making them harder to sever. Ned's mouth tightened. Dragonglass kills walkers, but we have limited supply. Robert tapped hammer against thigh. Quicksilver's flame proved match at Icemark. True, Ned conceded, but winter winds swirl wilder the farther north. Flame may falter and freeze before impact. He pointed to Blackwater Rush. Here mild. Beyond Last Hearth, breath freezes mid-word. Robert cursed softly. So we bring fire and steel and hope 7 smile. Ned's gray eyes remained grave. And strategy. We cannot rely on one dragon. I received word from Dragonstone. The new hatchling, Hope, grows swiftly, but will not fly before next winter. Robert rubbed beard. Then we buy her time. He looked to Quicksilver perched above, wings half spread in sun. Buy by blood, if need be. In the Red Keep, Tywin Lannister wasted none of that time. He convened merchants, guildmasters, and Iron Bank envoys within vaulted treasury hall. Coffers were triple-locked, but contracts needed ink to mean gold. He floated promissory notes backed by Lannister silver mines to secure war loans. He levied 1 silver stag per vineyard cask shipped through the Mander past Bitterbridge, a bite small enough growers preferred tax to roving raiders. He replaced half the city watch captains with veterans paid from his purse, men whose loyalty he could weigh. He also summoned Pycelle, returned from Old Town with plague remedies, to draft edicts tightening curfew. Varys observed all quietly. The spider recognized Tywin's fortress building. Secure capital while dragons absent. Yet Quicksilver's nightly patrol returning from north reminded even Tywin that power now flew on wings he could not buy. Meanwhile, Rhaenys' training persisted. Barristan taught sword forms at dawn on Godswood Lawn where early light dappled ancient heart tree. The White Weirwood watched as she practiced footwork. Advance, retreat, pivot. Septa Lemore clucked disapproval at bruises. But Rhaenys persisted, repeating Barristan's mantra. Steel obeys discipline, not passion. Her wrists ached. She learned to hold blade like quill, with intention not force. Aegon mimicked with a wooden dagger until distracted by squirrels. In evenings, Grand Maester Gorion tutored the siblings in history. Rhaenys absorbed tales of Queen Nymeria's 10,000 ships, of Visenya forging Dark Sister, of Baelor's September and its fall. Her young mind knitted past and present into tapestry. She, a thread yet twining. She wondered whether Nymeria had felt small before setting sail, or whether courage grows from helplessness. One night, while the castle slept, she slipped from bed, crossed balcony to where Quicksilver's absent perch overlooked moon-soaked night. She knelt, whispered, "Courage, come find me." Stars twinkled. Wind answered only with scent of sea. Yet somewhere north, she knew Quicksilver heard. The Dawnfire host trudged through breaking rains past Castle Serwyn. Thaw turned roads to mud. Wagons mired axle-deep. Northmen laughed at Southerners' curses, hauled ropes beneath biting sleet. Still Quicksilver soared overhead, forging path in sky where no ruts slowed. When the host reached Winterfell, the castle bells rang greeting. Lady Catelyn, stoic despite the worry carved by months apart, welcomed Ned with tears that steamed upon his cold cheeks. The Starks hosted feast in the great hall. Hot venison, honeyed carrots, bred trencher pools of gravy. Robert guzzled mead. His laughter boomed across rafters, yet purpose etched every face. The next dawn, Rhaenys' star flickered over Winterfell's battlements as ravens carried news to King's Landing. Ned Stark's host would leave the keep within 2 days, escorting Prince Aegon to begin his fostering. With them, wagons of obsidian blades carved at Dragonstone would push north to the wall, half the remaining stock. Robert's men would guard while Ned raced ahead with Quicksilver to reinforce Castle Black before winter roared again. At Eastwatch, Cotter Pike greeted ravaged knights bearing scars from prior engagements. Morale rose at sight of Dragon's descent, claws scraping ice as Quicksilver landed on the eastern parapet, throat steaming. Jon Snow embraced Ned like lost kin. They convened war council under shattered tower roof, wind whistling through cracks. Another storm front swirling beyond the shivering sea, unnatural turquoise glow in its heart. Fishermen of Hardhome vanished. Only ice floes drifted back, stained rust. Rangers sighted pale giant leading white herds, skin shimmering crystalline. Ned's jaw set. Battle must be fought on ground of our choosing. Moat of the wolf's den? Narrow valley funnels whites. Jon shook head. They do not tire. Hold a valley, they climb walls of corpses. Need choke point we can ignite. He pointed to map. The gorge below Bridge of Skulls. Steep ravines both sides. If we load ridges with pitch and dragonglass stakes, dragon can seal pass with fire.
Ned nodded.
We draw them in, collapse pass, burn remains. He gazed at Quicksilver through arrow slit. Hope wind calms. They dispatched riders to fell pine stands, carve stakes, dig trenches. Wildlings who had bent knee to Night's Watch under Aemon's earlier amnesty labored beside brothers. Grudges buried in frost worked like nails hammered through board. 3 days later, white winds howled. Crows in rookery screeched in unison and burst skyward. The storm approached, a wall of snow swallowing horizon. White spilled from its leading edge, skeletal hands protruding through swirling haze, eyes glowing amid blue flashes of lightning dancing across ice crystals. Jon donned black helm, Dark Sister's twin daggers belted, loaned from Ned for this fight. He strode a long line of defenders, Northmen, free folk, a smattering of Dornish spearmen layering foxfur over bright lacquered shields. He spoke, dragonglass on tips, burn the dead twice, protect the living once. Simple words, yet hearts steadied. Quicksilver roared overhead, flame-licking violet in howling winds. Fireballs arced downward, slamming into first wave. Whites ignited like tinder, but those behind clambered over, heedless. Pine stakes skewered ranks, bones snapped, still they wriggled forward, clawing dirt.
Et oppritsje, nedwatched for vokash.
There, a pale figure tall as Hodder's height, horned crown of ice cresting brow. It raised frost-shimmering sword. The dead surged.
Ned signaled.
Archers loosed flaming arrows, volley after volley, but fire flickered out mid-flight, smothered by unnatural chill. Only Quicksilver's flames held heat under gale. The dragon banked, unleashing torrent, but gusts warped stream sideways. Fire struck ridge instead, igniting resin barrels prematurely. Explosion thundered, showering defenders with embers. Panic nipped. Ned steadied men, ordered reinforcements to shore gap. Walker's sword pointed to dragon. A spear of razor ice coalesced within swirling air, then shot upward. Quicksilver veered, but spear skimmed wing membrane, slicing a ragged gash. A screech pierced storm. Ned's heart seized. He grabbed horn from Squire, blew 2 quick blasts, the signal for fallback to inner trench. Lines pivoted, dragging barricades. Whites pursued. Jon Snow scrambled atop outcrop. In his hand, a dragonglass spear. He waited until the walker strode within 30 paces, frost swirling around ankles. Lightning flashed, revealing gaunt cheekbones, eyes depthless as moonless pools. Jon exhaled, feeling lungs freeze. He hurled spear. Wind whipped, but guidance of ghosts seemed to direct tip. The spear struck Walker's shoulder, lodging near collar. For a breath time hung, then cracks ran spider-fast. The walker's face sagged, body fissured into powder, scattering a long gale. The whites nearest halted, twitching. A whole cluster collapsed as light left their eyes. Cheers ripped through defenders, barely audible in storm. Yet more walkers appeared, 4 or 5 stepping from Squall's Vale. Jon's quiver held no more spears. He drew twin daggers, dragonglass edges glistening. Quicksilver circled, wounded but fighting. Blood, glowing dull orange, dripped from wing tear, hissing into snow. Ned mounted a destrier, rode to Dragon's landing path. With wild gesture, he signaled Dragon downward. Quicksilver landed hard, shaking ground, eyes bright with pain. Ned approached warily, stroked scaled chest, murmuring in low voice until heartbeat slowed. He tugged leather binding. Beneath saddle flap, a rack of obsidian javelins remained. He loaded 4 into crate harness strapped to his own horse. Back on ridge, he distributed javelins to archers with keenest aim, wildling spearwives used to throwing at hares in sighing woods. They hefted, kissed tips for luck. First javelin arced, guided by luck of desperate hearts, and pierced a walker's midsection. Shatter of ice cracked like distant glacier splitting. Arctic howl rippled through whites, they staggered. Second javelin missed, buried harmless in snow. The third struck. Another walker burst to shards. 2 walkers remained, eyes fixed on Dragon. They converged, conjuring swirling vortex of snow around themselves, forging barrier of spinning razors. Quicksilver tried approaching, but wind repelled flame. Ned had 1 javelin left, handed to Jon. Jon stared at the whirling storm, then at Ravine's edge. He shouted over roar, "Drop them!"
Ned blinked. Realization dawned.
He signaled crews. They cut rope braces holding logs stacked along gorge rim. Weighted with pitch-filled sacks, logs tumbled, bouncing off walls, smashing into whites below. Flames from tar lamps above ignited sacks midfall. Burning debris spiraled into gorge, lighting creeping dead. The gorge became furnace. Walkers paused. They seemed disoriented by heat they could neither quench nor manipulate. Wind wall flickered. Jon seized chance, sprinted across narrow path, slid on knees under swinging white's claw, and hurled javelin. Pierced center of storm. The gale collapsed. When snow cleared, shards shimmered where Walker had stood. Last Walker shrieked, raising sword high. Quicksilver reacted, tail whipping, launching broken boulder into the creature. Impact cracked its torso, but not enough. Ned grabbed remaining wildfire flask from belt, pulled wick, and flung. Green explosion enveloped Walker. For heartbeat nothing changed. Then cracks, fissures, dissolution into steaming slurry. With last commander gone, White Horde collapsed, limbs jerking before falling silent. Some targets still writhed, defenders systematically chopped, burned. When dawn peered over mountains, the gorge smoked like dragon's nostril. Bodies, human and not, littered field. Crows circled. Ned slumped against wall, exhaustion hammering bones. Jon approached, face ash-streaked. They clasped arms. "Hold!" Jon rasped, voice hoarse.
Ned surveyed charred chasm.
For now. He looked to Quicksilver perched upon ridge, battered but alive. For now. Ravens raced south. At King's Landing, Tywin studied their scrolls beneath lamplight. His gold-ringed fingers tapped table. Victory in North fortified Targaryen claim and Baratheon protectorate. Dragons rising meant less room for Lannister maneuver. Tywin weighed next move, loyalty or subversion. Cersei entered unbidden, green eyes glinting. Father, the court dotes on the little princess. They will crown her queen before Moon's next turn. She sneered. A child. Tywin regarded daughter coolly. Children grow. She paced. Then arrange her betrothal to Jaime before that fool Robert returns. No, he sipped wine. We buy time. Offer comfort, counsel. When debt and gratitude align, the crown will call on us. His eyes narrowed. And if dragons fall? He left question open. On Dragonstone, hope spread wings under dawn's first gold. The young white dragon beat upward, testing thermals. Grand Maester Gorion oversaw from stone deck. A raven perched on parapet, Aemon's ghost wing watching the fledgling. The third dragon, Blazeheart, named by Aegon, scrambled after sibling on stunted wings, crimson gold scales catching light like sparks from forge. Red Priest Benero raised arms. Behold, 3 heads of the dragon. His cry carried across courtyard, sailors pausing to salute symbol of prophecy. Hope climbed high, wheeled, then shrieked, sensing something afar. Gorion tilted head. What do you see? Beyond horizon, storm clouds churned. But these clouds glowed violet, unlike any natural frontal mass. Magic stirred. The war was far from done. Gorion ordered ravens prepared. In the riverside tent north of the neck, Rhaenys lay awake listening to distant owls. She had traveled under Tyrell banners toward Sunspear, escorted by Dane's contingent and Barristan. Yet nightmares of ice giants and her Uncle Ned's letter-haunted sleep. She rose, slipped from silken bedroll, stepped outside. Stars mirrored on nearby pool. She picked smooth pebble, tossed. Ripples wavered starlight. Among reflections, she thought she saw a pale face beneath water. Heart hammered. She blinked. Ripples calmed to reveal only moon. Fear turned to resolve. She would not hide behind desert walls while family bled. Barristan approached, sensing her absence. He knelt. Princess. She looked north. Take me to the wall, she said. He hesitated. The council. I am heir. They will forgive. Her chin lifted. Moon glinted on her eyes. If dragons ride to save realm, their rider shall be me. Barristan studied her, the weight of oaths centuries old pressing upon steady shoulders. He exhaled. Then we ride at first light. He bowed. At East Watch, Jon Snow stood beside Ned on rampart, scanning white wastes. Scouts ventured but returned with no sign of Walker host. Jon frowned. Too quiet. Ned nodded. They retreat to gather strength. And we must as well. He glanced at Quicksilver sleeping curled like a hill of silver scales. The dragon needs mending. Jon's gaze remained on horizon. And we need more dragons. A horn sounded, 3 blasts, riders approaching. Hours later, a column came into view, Dornish banners fluttering, but not southbound. At its head, Barristan led, Rhaenys mounted on chestnut pony. Quicksilver stirred, sensing kin.
Ned descended stairs.
Rhaenys dismounted, snow crunching under boots. She bowed.
Uncle Ned.
He smiled tiredly. You travel far. She answered in a voice that trembled yet held steel. Farther still if duty calls. Barristan saluted Jon. My prince, he said, noting shifting lines of legitimacy. Night's Watch brothers exchanged astonished murmurs. A Targaryen princess at the wall? History unfroze. Ned guided them to Great Hall, scant warmth from fires. Jon offered mulled ale. They spoke of battles and dragons. Rhaenys listened fiercely. When Ned finished, she turned to Jon. Teach me to fight walkers. Jon regarded her small frame, but saw flame inside. It will hurt, he warned. I welcome pain that saves others. She met his eyes. He nodded. Quicksilver lumbered into yard, injured wing partly mended by Maester salves. The dragon sniffed Rhaenys, exhaled warm breath. She reached, resting palm upon scale. Quicksilver lowered head until she could touch crest. Jon and Ned exchanged look, bond deepening. That eve, northern lights flared emerald above wall. Quicksilver answered with trumpet call that reverberated across tower tops, a challenge to darkness. Beyond Frostfang peaks, in cavern of azure ice, the Night King stood among shards of his fallen generals. He raised skeletal hand above altar of crystal. In center lay splinter of dragonglass javelin, still humming with residual flame. Blue motes swarmed round it. Whispers of ice cracked, language older than winter. Snow eddied. From shadows emerged forms, hulking, monstrous. Not dead men, but corrupted giants. Their skins studded with shards, eyes empty suns. The Night King placed dragonglass shard within chest of largest. Frost grew over wound, ceiling. Giants stirred, roared voice of cracking glaciers. The Night King turned northward, toward unknown lands beyond shivering sea, where legends spoke of deeper cold. He would gather strength unimaginable, and when he marched again, dragons alone might not quell the storm. Far south, Tywin Lannister wrote letters sealed with red wax, inviting Euron Greyjoy to parley on matter of mutual opportunity. In Driftmark, Hope and Blazeheart practiced aerial combat under watchful eyes of red priests, who whispered that fire is a single verse in a larger song, one where shadows dance at its edge. In King's Landing, Grand Maester Gorion tracked star charts. The comet near Moon brightened nightly, tail lengthening, tinted faintly green. Omens abounded. The war for dawn had only just begun.